Hello and welcome back or welcome here, I don't know. As you can see in the description, this is a part 2. Here you can see part 1. Though I have to say it's not super important or necessary to watch part 1 to understand this video. In part 1 I'm simply talking about the first time my symptoms started on a Monday all the way up to a Saturday where I ended up in the ER. And that's actually where I'm going to continue here in this video. So, as I said, it's Saturday, around 10 p.m. by the time I saw a doctor. The doctor told me to stay in the hospital. I tried to fight him, at last I stayed. Yeah, I didn't want to stay there. Absolutely didn't. It was the thing I told my mom first in the ER that I'm not gonna stay there. So yeah, around 10 p.m. When I was shown my room in the Department of Neurology, and I had nothing on me, like just the clothes I was wearing, because I literally didn't want to stay there, so I didn't prepare at all for the case that I would have to stay there. And I wasn't allowed to go back home first. I asked, I wasn't allowed to, so I had to stay there. And the annoying part is weekend also counts as weekend in the hospital. So on Sunday nothing happened. I just had to stay there and do nothing. Luckily my parents visited me and also brought me some stuff. But on Monday the torture started. So it was Monday morning and the morning nurse came in, I don't know, it was around 6 a.m. or something, and she grabbed into her pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. Obviously all of my informations were written on that, and she just opened it and said like, "Oh, the doctors expect you to have MS." And I didn't, and nobody said that before. I was just like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And she was like, "Oh, no, you do." It's like, "Oh, awesome. Good morning to you too." Like that's the first time someone said MS around me. It was an awesome experience. And shortly after, the doctors came in, told me about the plan for the day. First, there was a lumbar puncture, and I actually have to say I can't recommend it, not at all. But you often see that in like these medical shows, I don't know, Dr. House, Grey's Anatomy, emergency room, and it's not as horrible as it's portrayed there. Let me just say that. But as I said, I would never ever recommend it. If you don't have to do it, don't do it. And after lumbar puncture, you're supposed to lay down for I think 2 hours to reduce the risk of complications. But earlier that day I told some doctors that I would be happy to be a test object for medicine students. And then came in like 50 minutes after the doctor was done with my lumbar puncture. So I was just like laying there and just like, okay, don't move, don't risk any, mostly just headaches. It's just mostly just headaches you can get from a lumbar puncture. But then the students came in, they were around my age, which was kind of awkward. But it was super fun, and I had to do a lot of like sporty activities to test my balance and stuff like that. And and right after they left, I was taken to another test where I was downstairs in the hospital, and there I actually can't even like truly explain what that woman did, but she tested my nervous system and if it works the way it's supposed to. So that means she pushed small needles inside of my head, like my scalp, my forehead, also my collarbones. And then she put electricity on my hands and my feet, and then she tested how long it would take for the electricity to go starting from my big toe up to my head, for like how long it would take the electricity to go this way. And yeah, that also was kind of uncomfortable. Also, up to today, I don't even know the results of the test. But anyway, I mean, it wasn't. It sounds worse than it actually is. I mean, she needed a lot of electricity to like start my reflexes, so she could actually see that the electricity is working, and she's actually that she actually hit the right nerve. But I mean, I also can't recommend that. That would be like a 2 of 10, but the lumbar puncture is a 1 of 10, so sounds worse than it actually is. After that was finally done, I was just so tired. I mean, I went to the hospital mostly because of the super exhaustion I was feeling. And like after this testing was done, I just went upstairs again to my room and just thought like, oh my gosh, I need a break. And then I saw this piece of paper on my table saying to go to the MRI once I'm done with this needle test. I just thought like, oh, not again, not more. And anyways, I went to the MRI, and the mean part actually was like the person taking the MRI told me that it would only take around 50 minutes. I ended up in there for 1.5 hours. And I didn't know, I had no way of communicating with the people. I was just laying there, I had no way of knowing what time actually passed. I was just laying in nothing, waiting for it to end, and just feeling like, okay, 15 minutes must be over now. And I know how long 15 minutes can be. I mean, I went to school for 13 years, so I had maths classes for 13 years. I know how long 15 minutes can take to pass. But, you know, being in this MRI scan machine, I don't know, being told it's only gonna be 50 minutes and then being in there for 1.5 hours. I mean, being in there, you lose all sense of time anyway. But then just like starting to count the seconds and then totally losing trust in yourself because you were told it's going to be 50 minutes, but it can't be 50 minutes. It was truly nerve-wracking, actually. So after that was also done, I was absolutely done with the day. Absolutely done. But once I was back in my room, I was told that the results of my lumbar puncture came back positive, which isn't good. And then I was put on cortisone therapy straight away. So I started getting my infusions straight away. I wasn't even allowed to like truly sit down for a second, and I already had the infusion in my arm. And that's actually where another problem started, because I have obviously really bad veins, so they had to pierce this butterfly needle, I'm not sure what it's called, every day, like readjust it every day, sometimes even twice a day. In the end, they even had to like use my wrist because they didn't find any more places on my arms. And believe me, your wrist is the worst place to have this infusion needle. Anyways, I'm actually trying to think if they made any more testing on me, because that was all happening on Monday and I was there until Friday. But I actually think that was all the testing they did. And then also on Monday evening, because this infusion needle thing, butterfly, I don't know, had to be re-pierced. I had to find a doctor to do that. And then I asked him if he maybe has some time to look at my MRI with me. And there I also saw the first time, he also did for the first time, no one looked at my MRI before that. But there we saw that I actually do have some spots on my brain, which were like the cause for all my problems. I mean, the doctor, I was kind of shocked. I also thought it's kind of interesting, but I was also shocked, of course, because it was my brain. But the doctor told me that was, they expected that because my lumbar puncture was positive, so I had my immune system is active in my central nervous system, so there had to be some spots. It was just about how many spots are there. And now I seriously have to say I have no clue what happened on Tuesday and Wednesday, besides of getting my infusions every morning. Seriously, I have no idea. I was kind of like hanging out, playing test object for students a lot. So I guess that's what I did on Tuesday and Wednesday, just hanging out with students and being their test object. But on Thursday, I was officially told that the doctors did all the testing they could, and now it can't be anything else but MS. Though I honestly have to say it sounds kind of weird that only on Thursday I found out that it actually is MS. But gotta be Thursday. I don't know, I don't truly remember, but I'm pretty sure it actually has to be Thursday. Because on Thursday I got a new roommate, and she was there when I was told that it is MS. And she was there only for one night, and I was allowed to go home on Friday as well. So it has to be Thursday. And actually it could have been worse being told this diagnosis, because as I said, this new roommate, she also has MS and has been living with it for 30 years. So she truly knew what I was going through and could truly support me in that situation. So it gotta be Thursday because she was there and she was only there with me for one day. And yes, as I said, so getting this diagnosis was shocking. Though I honestly have to say it was even more shocking being told that I'm not allowed to smoke anymore. So I was already told that on Monday evening, when the doctors found out that from the lumbar puncture that my immune system is actually going crazy in my brain. That was like one of the only situations I actually cried in the hospital. It was kind of awkward actually. Because when I got the diagnosis, it was kind of shocking, but I expected it to be that because everyone was telling me about it. So actually, like the true realization what that meant for me started when I went back home. So as I said, Friday was my last day, mostly because the infusions I got can only be given for 5 days max. So since I started on Monday, Friday was the absolute last day they could give me the infusions. even though they didn't help me at all at that point. And I think the doctors expected my symptoms to get better straight away, but they didn't. So, yes, that's the end of my hospital story. Now it's Friday and I was allowed to go back home in the early afternoon. And seriously, the hospital was scary, but being back home, back in your everyday life, after being in the hospital for a week and getting that kind of diagnosis, was even worse than this week in the hospital with all the horrible testing and just being away from home, which is something I don't like at all. No, being back home was worse. Being back in reality, far away from this surreal situation that is being in a hospital. So yes, being back home was even worse, like mentally worse. I mean, I started to get better physically, though this took weeks, many weeks, but I got so much worse mentally. And I actually think now, once again, the point is reached where I don't feel like talking anymore. So, the experience after the hospital, the time after the hospital, is content for part 3 of this mini-series. How exciting! Yeah. Once again, if you want to say something about it or tell me about your experience, if you had to go through something similar, tell me in the comments, send a DM on Instagram, I don't mind. And yeah, that's it for now. I will see you next time. Bye.